Hello everyone, this is Ritesh Agrawal, AGT Mathematics, Kendriya Vidyalaya Balaghat. Now I welcome to all of you in this new session of, it is my first session in this online YouTube channel, and I am here for something explain about our second topic of class 12 mathematics, which is inverse trigonometric function. So there are the three words are there: inverse trigonometric function, and we know about already function in class 11th we have read about function. Already we have read about trigonometry in class 11th, and recently in first chapter our Pundir sir has explained about inverse function. So now dear students, there is no any new word. All the words are habitual in our theory, but now we want to read these three words simultaneously, and this is called inverse trigonometric function. So dear students, because we have not taken the classes in our board, teaching board, so your book is very important, and all teachers have sent the soft copy of book, and you can download also. So follow the word to word in your workbook, and which will be very useful to improve your basic knowledge. So now inverse trigonometric function. So first of all, we will read about trigonometric function. Trigonometric function So suppose we will take first function y is equal to sin x. Sin x already we have read in class 11, but now suppose in sin x, when we start sin x, so if we want to find the value of x is equal to first value always is 0. 0 is very important. So now I want to sing a song for 0, that is, you all know that is, जब जीरो दिया मेरे भारत ने मेरे भारत ने, दुनिया को तब गिनती आई, तारों की भाषा भारत ने, दुनिया को पहले सिखलाई, देता ना दशमलव भारत तो चांद पे जाना मुश्किल, धरती और चांद की दूरी का अंदाजा लगाना मुश्किल था, सभ्यता जो हो पहले. So this is a song which is made for 0. Actually, now we will start our sin x. So dear students, you know, when we start anything, first we always see what is the value of this function at 0, and 0 is the starting point, and which is start by India. So we have brought to our country. We have to proud our country that the country has given the mathematician, great mathematician, is given 0 and all were proud for it. So the student 0. Suppose the sign of 0, we know that sign of 0 is 0. Sign of pi by 4, we know that sign of pi by 4, 1 by root 2. So before it, if we take a Venn diagram, then 0 is related to 0. Pi by 4 is related to 1 by root 2. Pi by 2 is related to 1. Similarly, minus pi by 4 related to minus 1 by root 2. And minus pi by 2 is related to minus 1. We can see the value of, if we use this set A, if it is set A and it is set B, then we know the value of set B are fixed. No any new answer will become. But in set A there are so many values like 3 pi by 4. But the value of 3 pi by 4 is related to 1 by root 2. So now it implies the sin x function is many one function. But if you want to find inverse trigonometric function or inverse function, then function should be 1, 1. So this is the first rule. We have to restrict our domain and restricted our domain. So it will be very helpful if we take only these values in our domain. Then we can invert this function. So all trigonometric functions are many one function. But if we restricted the domain of our trigonometric function, we can take inverse of this function. So this is very important. So dear students, please remember it and note down it. All trigonometric functions are not invertible. Trigonometric functions are invertible when we restricted their domains. So when we read this topic, inverse of function, this is the given is in our book, that is function f is exist. Function f is exist. Function f is exist. If the function, the inverse of function is exist, when inverse of function is exist, then function is 1, 1 and 1, 2. The many one function are not 1, 1 function. Therefore, we have to make them 1, 1. On 2, it is very easy. On 2, the range should be the codomain. Then function is invertible. The inverse function already read in class 12, first chapter. So, but we know trigonometric function are not 1, 1, but we can make them 1, 1. For that, we have to restrict their domain and codomain in order to make them 1, 1 and out. So, but we will prefer that the domain and range should be principal value branches. Principal value branches. Actually, sine inverse sine function minus pi by 2 to minus pi by 2 is our range. If someone can be explain it to pi by 2 to 3 pi by 2 also. This is so pi by 2 to 3 pi by 2. This is also can be taken as a range. but this is not principal range. We will take principal. So dear students, this is the function y is equal to sin x. If we write, then domain is R and range is -1 to 1. But we have already read about trigonometric function. But this is the time inverse function. Suppose we have read inverse of f represented by f inverse. So sin x is not the, always remember it. Sin x meaning is not sin into x. This is sin of x, function of x. So our function here f is equal to sin. So what is f inverse? It is sin inverse. This is not the meaning 1 upon sin. Remember it. This is not show 1 by sin. It is how to write and enunciate it, sin inverse x. So now we know that when we take function, inverse of function, the range will be domain will be range. So sin inverse x function, this is the function from -1 to 1 to -π/2 to π/2. It is, we have explained it. When we inverse this, then the range domain is, this is called domain and this is called range. So domain is -1 to 1 and range is -π/2 to π/2. So this is the way to take inverse function. We can learn the inverse trigonometric function. So now first is sin inverse function. Sin inverse function is clear, please. Now this is not the classroom situation, so I can't ask the question to student, but they can ask the question me in my phone number, a separate phone number, separately. But now here, so first function is sin inverse function, and sin inverse function, first function is sin inverse function. The domain of this function is, we have to remember in this time, definitely we have to remember the domain of sin inverse function is -1 to 1 and the range of this function is -π/2 to π/2. Restricted, range should be restricted. So we can make the graph of this function also. Suppose sin function, if sin inverse function, we can make the graph. This is x-axis, this is y-axis. The domain, we know that domain is -1 to, -1 to +1, and range is 0 to pi. So we know that -1, now the y-axis 0, this is π/4, this is π/2, this is -π/4, this is -π/2. We have to try it. All students, please make the graph of all inverse trigonometric function. Some points, we know that the -1. If we take sin inverse of -1, then we know the answer is minus pi by 2. The first point is there. Similarly, minus 1 by 2 is here. So sine inverse of minus 1 by 2 is minus pi by 6. So minus pi by 6 here. This is minus pi by 6. Sine of 0 is 0. Similarly, sine inverse 1 by 2, if we can take, then this is pi by 1. So we can see the graph of sine inverse function will be like this. So this is the graph of sine inverse function. Please, students, listen very carefully and clearly. You have to make the graph of all functions. Try to it. It will be helpful for our next chapters. So many differentiation chapters, increasing, decreasing functions chapters, application of derivative, area related to area bounded by two functions. In these all chapters, the graph of function is very important. So now it is the time you have to practice to make the graph of every function. I humble request to all my dear students, please make the graph of first trigonometric function and after that inverse trigonometric function. So this is the sine inverse function graph, and similarly we will one more function, cos inverse function, graph of cos inverse function. We will see of cos inverse function graph. About cos inverse function x, this is our theory from 10th class. We have read that the sine and cos are the ratio of perpendicular and hypotenuse and base and hypotenuse, and hypotenuse is always greater than perpendicular and base. Therefore, the sine value and cos value of any angle will be lies between minus 1 and plus 1. There is the reason. But now, how will we make the graph of cos inverse function? The cos inverse x function, again the domain is minus 1 to 1, but range is 0 to pi. Because cos function gives the different answer. Minus pi to 0 is also will be range, but it is not the principal branches, and we have to prefer for every function principal branches. Minus pi to 0, it is also nearest to 0, but we will take, if possible, positive answer, positive values. So we will take only 0 to pi. So if we make the cos inverse function graph, so now again this is suppose x-axis and this is suppose y-axis. Again the value which are possible are minus 1, 1, root 3 by 2, minus 1 by 2, 0, 1 by 2, and root 3 by 2. This is clear. This is clear. And the value 0 and pi by 6, pi by 4, pi by 3, pi by 2, and 3 pi by 4. In this way, we will 5 pi by 6 and pi. These are the possible answers, because if we start from 0, we know that cos inverse of 0 is pi by 2. The first, with 0, I have already given the importance of 0 by a song. Definitely it is our only work for entertainment. It is not, but not entertainment, it is the reality of our India. So for first value is pi by 2. Now the second value, if we want to find cos inverse of 1 by 2, then we know that cos inverse of 1 by 2 is equal to pi by 3. So pi by 3 is the second answer is pi by 3. Similarly, if we want to find 1 is 0, root 3 by 2, then it will be pi by 6. So this is the way. We can see the value is, similarly when we minus 1 by 2, cos inverse minus 1 by 2. Cos inverse minus 1 by 2, this is not minus pi by 3, it is 2 pi by 3. Similarly, cos inverse minus 1 by root 2, and cos inverse minus 1 is pi. So we can see here the graph of this function is pi inverse pi. This is the graph of cos inverse x function. Yes, student, this is only a way we can make so many graph of all functions, and sin inverse x and cos inverse x are very important. So now we will read domain and range. We have to learn them, we have to remember these because these are very important for our problems in exercise, so to solve them. The first function is sin x. Sin x, the domain of sin inverse x is the first function, inverse trigonometric function. The domain is minus 1 to 1. This x can be put the value minus 1 to 1. Then this sin inverse x answer will be between minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Similarly, cos inverse x, in this cos inverse x, the x will be between again minus 1 to 1. Then cos inverse x between 0 to pi. Similarly, the third one is cosec inverse x. Cosec inverse x function, it is also very important. In class 11th and 10th, we know that as sin x never between minus 1 to plus 1. Similarly, cosec x sin x never between except minus 1 to 1. Similarly, cosec inverse x never between minus 1 to 1. So this is we know that the cosec inverse x, if it is a function, then always cosec inverse x, the domain of cosec inverse x will be the real number minus 1 to 1. And range is as a range of cosec inverse x exactly as a sin inverse x. But because there is a 0 is a value between minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, and we know that 0 never, because cosec 0 is not defined, therefore 0 will be omitted from the domain of sin inverse x function. And similarly, the fourth function, sec inverse x function. Sec inverse x is as a cosec inverse x. We know that the domain, all real number except the real number between minus 1 to 1. And the range is again as a cos inverse x function range. But again there is an exception, pi by 2, because sec pi by 2 not defined value, so we have to omit it, pi by 2. And now tan inverse x and cot inverse x, and you know in class 11 we have the graph of tan x function, cot x function, because tan and cot are the ratio of length, perpendicular and base, and there will be no any criteria restriction, so all real number can possible. So in tan inverse can be found for all real numbers. So this is the domain, and range, the principal branches will be minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, open interval. It should be open interval because interval, we have read about interval in class 11. When we show any open interval, then boundary values are not exist in that interval, because pi by 2 is never the answer of tan inverse x. But it is exception. We will use this tan inverse infinite is equal to pi by 2 so many times in integration chapters. But yet then remember it, the range of tan inverse x function is minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. And similarly, cot inverse x function domain is R and range is open interval 0 to pi. So, dear students, this sixth function already we have read in class 11 in direct order, but now this is the time we have to write them there in opposite order, but first we will restrict them in their principal domain of their function in principal branches. It is very important, because then these function will be 1, 1 and on to, and we can take inverse of them. So this is our first basic concept of inverse trigonometric function. This is not a new function. Already we know about trigonometry, inverse function. Only we want to see about inverse trigonometric function. So there are some notes. Please remember it. The symbol sin inverse x should not be confused with sin x inverse. This is very important, because confusion is there, because sin square x is there, then we can write sin x whole square. It is true, but this is not true for sin inverse function. Sin inverse x and sin x whole inverse, these are not equal. Please, in fact, sin inverse x is an angle. Sin inverse x is an angle, and the value of cosine is x. Similarly for other trigonometric function. And the smallest numerical value, either positive or negative, of theta is called the principal value of function. This is also we read in class 11. The smallest numerical value, either positive or negative, of theta. Positive value is called principal value of the function. So dear students, this is our basic knowledge. Again, if n is natural number, then sin power n power x can be written as sin x power n. But now, this is the very important rule. This is not equal to sin x inverse. And again also, sin inverse is equal to 1 upon sin. It is also not the meaning anywhere. Please, this will be remembered. And sin inverse x is a angle. It is a angle. Some question we can find. Now, the third Whenever no branch of an inverse trigonometric function is mentioned, we mean the principal value branch, the value of the inverse trigonometric function which lie in the range of principal branch is its principal value. And this is also written graph of an inverse trigonometric function. The graph of inverse trigonometric function can be obtained from the graph of original function by interchanging x-axis and y-axis, and if AB is a point on the graph of trigonometric function, then BA becomes the corresponding point on the graph of its inverse trigonometric function. So it can be shown that the graph of inverse function can be obtained from the corresponding graph of original function as a mirror image along the line y is equal to x. This is a very practical thing. Dear students, I will explain this thing. Suppose this is the book which is exemplar book of class 12th. So you have to download this book from NCERT folder, and this is a very important mirror image of direct function. We can find the inverse function graph, but this is not directly it will be true. For example, I want to take a project. This is a project for you. Project is that, suppose take a paper which is transparent, and we can transparent paper. This is suppose transparent paper, and suppose we make a graph of sin x. Sin x. Suppose we will make a graph of sin x between minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Then we know that the graph of this function is like this. This is the graph of sin x function. But now if we want to find the graph of inverse function, so first we will rotate this transparent sheet in anti-clockwise direction. When we rotate this sheet in anti-clockwise direction, then it will be shown in this form. It will be shown in this form. Minus pi by 2 will be here, pi by 2 will be here, and the graph will be like this. Because this is not our answer, because this is minus y. Yeah, this is plus y. This is minus y, then this is minus y. And this is plus x. So this is not our original answer. Now we will rotate this transparent sheet in 360. We will see this. Now again we will rotate this sheet in. This is turn. First is turn and rotate. So this is the rule. We have to rotate this sheet in this way, and after that we have to this is turning and this is rotate. When we rotate in 360 degree this sheet, then the obtained function will be the inverse of sin inverse x. Inverse function, graph of sin inverse x. So this is a mirror image of original function. You will find in this way. Then this is a project. You can try it in your home. You have to take a sheet transparent and make original function. First turn in 90 degree. Second rotate in 360 degree. Sorry, rotate in 180 degree. So what will we do? First turn 90 degree in anti-clockwise direction. Second, rotate 180 degree. Then the face which will be in the upper side, front side, it will be the inverse of this function. Please do it. It is very interesting and it is the magic of maths. It is magic of maths. Maths is magic. Always remember it. Maths is magic. And we can do so many things by this maths. And it is a 40 days lockdown. And we can enjoy in our whole year lockdown if we understood this maths in our home. And now these are the very important technologies. So many technologies are available, and we can show our talent to all, because this technology is very good. So dear students, I think you all are listen everything. You all have listened everything very sincerely, and you have to read the word to word of your book. This is the time, and you can improve your basic knowledge very high. And if you improve your basic knowledge, then definitely there is no the time when you will success in JEE. Our aim should be clear the exam in first attempt, and our Kendriya Vidyalaya students can do it very sincerely and very hard, because our students are very talented. So hope you have understood the things. And now the next session we will continue the properties of inverse trigonometric function. Today I am not teaching so many things, but I have tried to learn that how we will read the book. We have to read the book very deeply. And so dear students, I will request to all of you, please go through the properties of inverse trigonometric function in your book, and we will continue in next session all the properties, all the formulas of inverse trigonometric function. So please students, read in your home your book, which is in soft copy or in hard copy. And till then, thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you.